Hi everybody, I'm Stefan for cgtutsplus.com, and this is the next tutorial of our laptop series. So let's get started. Let's create our second scene here. And first of all, what we need to do is to open the laptop and select the keyboard and just alt click on the traffic lights to hide it, and select this keyboard here and hide it as well. Because what we need to do is to make a selection below the keys and apply this material that emits light, and we need to select the bottom body and go to polygon mode, and after that go to select and just take this here, just click and take it here, and we need to choose a ring selection and just zoom in here, and as you can see we need to select this and hold down shift and select this, and do that for each key like so, and that's the fastest way I found to do it. And actually try to find a better way to do this type of selection, but it seems that cinema is a bit limited in doing such selections. So let's continue by selecting all the keys, and basically you get the idea of what we need to do. So I'm going to pause the video, select everything, and then continue and show you how to proceed after that. Here we are again. I've selected all the polygons that we need, and now what we are going to do is to click on grow selection a couple of times, and we need to zoom in to see how our selection looks like, and we need to make this selection, and now let's click set selection, and this sets our selection. So let's name it Go, and let's take the bottom body, take our Go keyboard Go material and apply it here, and as you can see that's how the result looks like. And we need to select our material, and on the selection we need to type Go like so, and as you can see, let's go to object mode. This is how our keyboard looks like. So if we turn on the main keyboard and let's enable the second copy of the keyboard and turn off the main keyboard and keep only the touchpad, this is how our keyboard looks like. As you can see, we have the nice glow around the keys that we are going to add glow in After Effects when we composite the project. So that's it about adding the glow. Let's save the project and let's create a new camera so we can create our animation. Let's turn on the camera, let's go to the coordinates, and let's make the duration of our timeline to 62 frames. And for the first frame of our camera, let's set this to in the original position I used for the project. Like so, and we need to go to the camera settings and go to object and set the focal length to 30 millimeters for this shot, and we need to go to details tab in order to enable the depth of field options, and let's change this to 110 and this to 180 in order to be able to generate depth buffer pass and let's go to the object once again and go to the focus distance, and let's change it to 285. We want our focus to be around here. And now we need to go to the coordinates for the camera and set a keyframe for the X, Y and Z position, as well as for the rotation here. And let's go to the end frame and change this like so. Set a keyframe and change this like so. Set a keyframe. By the way, I'm holding down Control and clicking on the circles here to set a keyframe, and set this to 30. Set a keyframe and set this to -10 as well, and set a keyframe. And if we play the animation, this is how it looks like, and as you can see, it starts slowly and then stops slowly, and this is something that Cinema 4D does by default. So we need to go to Window and click on Timeline. Let's expand it and open the camera. Select the camera, go to the curve editor mode, and as you can see, we can select our curves and make them linear. And if we go to the start of our animation and play it back, you can see how it looks like. And we need to open the timeline once again, and let's see, we missed one curve, so let's make this one linear as well. And let's play the animation now, and as you can see, this is how our animation looks like. So right now we need to set two whites for this scene. We have a few softboxes here already. So for this scene we don't need to have the seamless 4, and let's select one of our whites and let's go to the settings for the white, and let's set the brightness to 100. And now let's make the radius a bit bigger for this white, and let's keep the overall scale to 300%. And let's go to the coordinates and position the white as I positioned it originally in my project, so something around here I think would be fine. And if we turn off the camera, you can see, if we turn on this white where it exists in the 3D space, and if we select our second white here, and let's turn this one on as well, and let's go to the options for the softbox and set the brightness to 50 and the overall scale to 200%. We want this one to be a bit smaller, and set the radius to 8000. Now we need to go to the coordinates for this white and set this one to 0, this one to 3000, and this one to 0 as well. And let's just 0 the rotation. We need like a overhead top white here, and if we turn this softbox and we do a render, you can see how our render looks like. And we need to render this with an alpha channel because we want to put a custom background in After Effects, as you can see. So maybe we need to increase the samples for the blur of our keyboard. So let's select the keyboard, go to the reflection and set this to 32. And if we do another render now, it's going to take a bit more time to render, but we are going to increase the quality of our body reflections, and you probably need to play with the material settings in order to clean it up, probably increase the samples. And the trick here when exporting the keyboard is, let's hit Ctrl B for the render settings, and let's go to multipass and click all image layers, and this adds all possible image layers that we can export. So we don't have any post effects, so we are going to delete the post effects. We are going to delete the atmosphere. We don't have caustics or global illumination. We don't have any refraction, so we want to keep these layers here, and we need to add a object buffer for our laptop here, which is object buffer with ID of 1. We need to increase the anti-aliasing to set it to best, and we need to export this. And after that we need to turn off everything. We need to turn off everything except the keyboard. We need to take it out here, turn off the laptop, select the keyboard, and the first time that we export it we want to go here, and probably we need to load our keyboard texture PSD file into the luminous channel here, because the first time we export this we want to have only the empty keyboard without the keyboard letters texture, because we want this as a separate pass with enough channel in After Effects, so we can manipulate the color, add glows and shine and stuff like that only to the keys, to the letters of the keyboard, because we pretend that they emit glow. There are LED lights below the buttons of the keyboard and they emit light, and we are going after this effect. So you need to either turn off this channel, or you can create a copy of your material and just let's clear the texture and make it black color like so. And the first time we export everything, and this we are going to apply this on every scene in this project. So the first time we export everything and the keyboard is a part of the laptop, here we want to apply, let's name this one keyboard clean. We want to apply the clean material of the keyboard, and once it's rendered out we need to take only the keyboard out and apply the material with the texture, and make sure you turn off reflection and specular on this material, and you turn off all the lights in the scene. Let's delete this white because we don't need it, because when we render we need to see only, let's turn off the laptop, we need to see a pure black with a white letters. So that's why I suggest you to load the letter texture into the luminous channel of your material. So with that ready, we are ready to go to our next scene. Let's check the render settings again, and let's set this to all frames and close this one and click Ctrl S to save the project. Now I'm going to make a copy of this project for our next scene and move on. So I did a copy of the project. As you can see, we are at scene 3 right here, and for this project let's delete the camera, and one thing that we need to do is to create a circle spline. Go to the object and change the plane, and we need to increase the radius of our circle. So let's increase it a bit. Like so. Maybe set this to 5000. And another thing that we need to do is to create a new object, which is going to be our target, and go to the coordinates for the new object, and let's set this to 500. Now we need to create a new camera, and we need to go to Cinema 4D tags and apply a line to spline tag as well as a target tag. So in the target tag we are going to take our new object and drag it and drop it here in the target object. That way our camera will look at our target. So if we take our target and move it, the camera will follow it. And we are going to select the align to spline and take our circle and drop it into the spline. And for this scene we need to make the duration 212 frames for our project, and we need to go to the first frame and let's select the new object and set a keyframe for the position, and let's select our circle and we need to move it up 200 centimeters and set a keyframe for this. Go to the radius and set a keyframe for the radius as well, and now we need to select the align to spline tag for our camera and set the position to 50%, and let's select the tag and let's set a keyframe, and let's move to the end of the timeline and set this to 77 right here and set a keyframe. And now we need to select our circle and decrease the radius to 2800 because we want the camera to rotate from one of the sides right here and zoom in. After that we need to set this to 8000, so we want the camera to be a bit higher, and for the new object here we need to raise it just a bit, and as you can see this is how our animation looks like. And we need to play with the curves later on. Also we need to select our camera and we need to animate our rotation. So at the beginning we need to set it to 10 and set a keyframe, and at the end we need to set this to 0 for the camera and set a keyframe once again. Also we need to go to the camera and set the focus focal length to 30 millimeters, so we have a bit wider angle, and that's how our animation looks like so far. Now what we need to do is to set up the lights for the scene. So we need to take our, let's see, this white here, and probably we are going to keep this one, or better let's remove all of the whites for the scene and we start fresh. So what we need to do is to have overhead, like from the top white, which whites the laptop. We need 3 whites, one here on this side, one here on the back, one here, and one white here, so we get reflections on the edges and some nice soft whites. So let's go to the content browser, open the presets, and open the White Kit Pro, and let's drop a overhead softbox. And this is our first softbox, and let's go to overhead softbox properties, and for the first one let's increase the intensity a bit. We need to increase the scale to 300%, and we are going to use this scale for almost all of the softboxes except the overhead top softbox. And we need to set the radius to 2000 and click seen by camera, because we don't want this to be seen by camera in our final render. And let's go to the coordinates for this softbox, and let's use the coordinates that I used originally in my project, or something close to what I used. So this is our back white, as you can see, which comes from here. And let's drop another overhead softbox. So let's call this one left back. Let's select this softbox here and go to the properties for this softbox, and we need to lower the brightness for this one, set the overall scale to 200%, and keep the rest of the settings like so. Just click seen by camera, and let's go to the coordinates for the softbox, and let's set the position, and we need to rotate it a bit because we want the white to white the screen, and probably we can set this to 0. And this is our, let's see, top. Let's go to the content browser and apply another softbox. Let's go to the softbox settings and set the brightness for this to 65, and let's increase the overall scale for the softbox to 300%, and let's set this to a bit higher number for the radius, and let's click seen by camera. And also we can change the color for this to a bit of a warm color. And let's go to the coordinates for the softbox, and we need to set this to negative 2300, and this is the softbox from this side here. Like so, and we need to set the rotation. As you can see, this is our softbox from here, and we need to add one more softbox. So let's drop another softbox in our scene, and let's name this one left front, and let's go to the softbox settings, increase the scale to 150% or maybe 300%, and increase the brightness to 150%, and let's increase the radius to 2000. Click seen by camera, and let's go to the coordinates for the softbox, and let's change the coordinates so we position it where we need it, right here. And this is our right back softbox, and we need to enable the 4, and let's go to the seamless 4, and let's set the color for it to a dark gray color. And if we turn on the camera, and let's go to the first frame and let's do a render. You can see how our laptop looks like. Let's enable the interactive render engine for our viewport, and let's rotate it here to check how it looks like. And in this scene we see the speakers, and let's hit Ctrl B for the render settings, and as you can see we have all the layers that we need to export. Probably we can apply a ambient occlusion, so we render this one as well, and we need to go to the anti-aliasing and set this to 1:1 by 4:4 for the scene, but we are going to have some issues here, so let's just remove the render region, open the laptop, let's switch to our free camera and select the object. And probably I think that you can get away by creating just a plane and applying a texture here with an opacity map or something like that. But just for this tutorial, let me show you that you can apply a compositing tag to this. And let's go to the tag and let's enable the force anti-aliasing option, which is going to force to increase the anti-aliasing by 2:2 to 8:8 only for this object. So you can render your scene almost without any anti-aliasing or lower it down, so you speed up your render time and force it to be higher only on this object here to avoid like artifacts or flickering and jagged edges and stuff like that. So I think that's helpful to know. And now let's create a 4, and on the 4 let's just apply a compositing tag so we don't see it, and let's apply also a external compositing tag and let's make it solid, because we want to have 3D coordinates for the 4 in After Effects, and you're going to see why when we start compositing this project. Also, what we need to do here for the laptop is we need to export it once without this illumination light, because it is going to reflect and give us some bad results and not good looking reflections on the screen, because we are going to animate it how it opens, and we need to export it again with the illumination. So this is something that's important, and also we need to export the letters of the keyboard the same way I explained for the previous scene. So with that said, let's move on and tweak the curves for our animation and animate the screen to open. First of all, let's switch to our, let's see, top view. Let's open the laptop and let's go to the, let's see where we have the screen. This is the top part, so we need to select this, and if we go to the top view you can see where is our anchor point, so we need to switch to the anchor point mode, to the axis mode, and let's move this in place, and we need to set it here in the middle, and let's switch to the side view here. I just move it up like that, and now for the top part we need to set the rotation to to something like 110 maybe, and probably set this to 0. And let's just take the move tool and switch to world transform and just move this up just a bit. Like so. And once we are ready with that, we need to go to frame 22, and with the top part selected, we need to set a keyframe for the rotation and go to 50 frames forward to frame 72, and let's set this one to 0, and let's set a keyframe. And if we go to our perspective view here and we enable our camera, you can see how our animation is going to look like. So now we need to open the timeline window and tweak the curves, and let's see what we are going to tweak here. The first thing that is going to change is that we select our target object, and as you can see, let me zoom in, you can see by default how Cinema makes the curves. So we need a linear curve for the target object. We need to select the camera, and for the camera rotation we need to have a linear curve as well, and for the display we need to keep it by default, and for the circle we need to select only the position of the circle and not the radius, and we want this to be linear as well. And we need to change the align to spline curve here, the animation, the rotation of the laptop. We need to select this point and just move it here like so, and select this and maybe move it like that. And if we play the animation, you can see that we have a very quick rotation at the beginning, and probably it's a bit too fast, maybe something like that. And let's play it again to see. And that's how our animation looks like for this. So let's save this project and let's go to the render settings and double check everything. It's very important to have ambient occlusion for the project. So we need to render an ambient occlusion pass, and let's switch to current frame for now and do a test render in the picture viewer. And here is how our render looks like. It takes only 47 seconds to render. And let's go to the layer, and if we click on a single pass, we can see our reflection pass, you can see the ambient, you can see the shadow, specular, diffuse, and we can see that we don't have any ambient occlusion, and that's because we need to go to the render settings and enable it. And also for the multipass we need to have a illumination, and the illumination, let me show you, let's go to this frame here and let's do another render. here is our render. It takes more time to render, as you can see. It takes like 2 minutes and 35 seconds, and I guess that it's probably because at this point here we don't see the speakers part, and we don't have ambient occlusion, while at this part you can see that we have the speakers and we have ambient occlusion. And if we go to single pass, you can see the ambient occlusion and the reflection, and you can see the illumination as well. And basically what we need to do is to take, as you can see, this is the ambient, and I did a mistake. I need to remove the illumination because basically we don't want this. As you can see, we see the circle of the infinite 4, which is something that we don't want. So let's go real quick to the render settings and remove the illumination. The one thing that we are interested in is the ambient, because the ambient is the layer with the white that we are going to use to generate the glow for the keyboard. And again, once you render this sequence, you need to take the keyboard and first render it with the clean keyboard, and after that render it with the material tag. And once we need to render the sequence about from frame 25, we need to render the sequence without the glow on the letters, and after that we need to render it with the glow of the letters. Also, one very important thing is that we select our screen. Here, let's go to the top part, let's select the screen, and we need to apply a compositing tag for this, and apply a object buffer 2 for this. And let's go to the render settings, and we need to apply 2 object buffers, one object buffer for the entire laptop and one object buffer for the screen. And also we need to apply a object buffer for this touchpad here. So let's select this and apply a external compositing tag, because we need to have the 3D coordinates for this, and we need to apply a compositing tab and object buffer. And since we need to have one complete, let's add one more object buffer, which is object buffer 3, and we want in the main object buffer here to have the full alpha for the entire laptop. So we need to have an object buffer 1 for it, but once we add an object buffer 3 for the laptop, we are going to cut a hole inside the main object buffer. So if we go to the render settings, and just for the sake of rendering this, let's remove the anti-aliasing in the ambient occlusion, and if we do a render here, we are going to see how our object buffers actually look like. So here is our render, as you can see, and if we go to single pass and click on the first object buffer, you can see how it looks like. This is the object buffer for the main laptop, and we have a empty hole here for the screen and the touchpad, and here is only the screen and only the touchpad. And in order to avoid this, we need to, let's close this, we need to select the object buffer for the touchpad and enable the object buffer 1 for this one, and we need to select the screen here and enable the object buffer 1 for it as well. And let's see, for the speakers we don't have any object buffer, so if we do another render here, here is how our render looks like. This is the main object buffer for our laptop, and here is the object buffer for the screen and the object buffer for the touchpad. So that's how our laptop looks like, and we are ready to render it. I just need to check something. And we are ready. Let's go to the render settings and enable the anti-aliasing in the ambient occlusion, and let's set the to all frames, and let's close this and hit save to save the project. And if we turn on our camera, we are ready to render the project. So that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I guess that we are going to be able to do the next 3 scenes, and with that we are going to finish the Cinema 4D part, and after that we are going to jump into After Effects and composite the project and create the final intro with the Razer logo. So that's it. Once again, I'm Stefan for cgtutsplus.com, and we'll see you next time.